Welcome to the Soar podcast, the place for creative entrepreneurs with limitless dreams and unconventional stories. I'm your host, Ray Hyde Cornell, founder and business mentor at Chiron Consulting and CEO and senior copywriter at Cornell Content Marketing. My goal is to bring you stories of what's possible so you can never tell yourself that your dreams are impossible. All right, welcome to today's episode. Today we have Esther. So Esther, tell us about your business and what it is that you do.
Hey, I'm so excited to be here. My name is Esther, and I am a graphic designer based in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm an illustrator as well, and I do a lot of branding, brand identity, illustrations, prints, and print design, and as well as social contents.
And I saw that you actually started your business when you were in college.
Yes, that's correct.
So tell me about that. What were you going to college for? And how did you get inspired to just kind of go out on your own, especially from a very young age?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. So I actually went to school for communication journalism. And then my first year was just like, going to all the classes and stuff. And then I took this intro to design class. And I was like, I think I love this. And I was, I was having good grades, and my professors were really encouraging to me. And I think I've always loved art, and I've always been painting and doing drawings since I was like very young, but I just didn't know what was design. And so when I took that intro to design class, it just kind of like made sense to me. I was like, this is what I love. It just made sense. And so I changed my major to graphic design, and I've never looked back. And then later on, people were just kind of like, seeing my work, my illustrations, my drawings, my paintings. I used to do a lot of just like small illustrations with watercolor. And so people were kind of like asking me to do things for them for their dorm room. And then it started with also wedding invitations, and just like slowly and slowly, people started to reach out to me. And so that's how it's all started.
And I think that's something that's very common for a lot of freelancers is you kind of
Yes.
start out doing a little bit of everything. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, you have like at least some semblance of an artistic bone in your body. So you must be able to do all of the things that
Yes.
anybody ever associates with
Yes.
art or design.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But even though later on in your career, we look back and we're like, oh my God, how did I ever do that? That was maddening. I was just all over the place all the
Yes.
time. And yet, it's actually a blessing to go
Mm.
through that process because you try things that you never would have tried.
Mm-hmm.
You get to experience things that you never would have
Yep.
otherwise. And you
Mm-hmm.
find things that sometimes surprise you that
Yes.
you really enjoy. And then that ends up becoming the thing that you niche down into.
That's
So
very true.
was that true for you?
Oh, yes, yes, yes. I feel like, yeah, exactly. When I look back, I'm like, I'm glad that I went through everything. I'm glad that I did all of this, to be where I am today. And yeah, it's so cool to kind of look back on my journey and just, be thankful for everything that I did.
Yeah. Was there something in particular that surprised you that you just kind of tried because someone asked you to, and then you ended up really loving it, but not expecting that to be the outcome?
Hmm. I'll say probably later on, I think just, growing as a designer, just trying things maybe that I'm not comfortable doing, and just, um and it being just great, and me being like, oh wait, I love this. This is fun. I want to maybe try more, or more of this. And so yeah, I think I would say later on in my journey as a graphic designer.
I love that you said that doing things that you weren't comfortable with,
Mm,
because I think, especially as freelancers and self employed business owners,
mm-hmm.
the imposter syndrome, that
Mm,
struggle is so real.
mm-hmm.
And yet, there's kind of this struggle, this weird dichotomy of, oh, I have imposter syndrome about something I know I can actually do really well.
Mm-hmm.
But then we also often take on opportunities where we're like, I've never done this before. I have
Yes.
no idea how to do this, but I'm going to give it a try. And imposter
Mm,
syndrome doesn't come into that sort of situation. So
mm-hmm.
it's like, What do you think that is about? What's your take on imposter syndrome and doing things that are outside of your comfort zone and truly being both successful and self-confident in your work?
Yeah. Well, I think first of all, I think all creatives will always have that imposter syndrome within them. I think, but I also think that it's necessary. I think it's a good sign for me personally. I think it's a good sign that I care about what I'm doing, and also I always force myself to do the things, even if even if they're scary. Actually, it somehow motivates me to go for it. If it's scary, I know that it's a good feeling. I don't remember what I read that actually, that sometimes when you have that fear or that there's just maybe stress, or it's a good feeling, especially as creative, no matter what you're doing, a photographer, videographer. Um, yeah, I think it's a very good feeling that just pushes you to do your best.
Yeah.
And so yeah.
Yeah, there's scary exciting, and then there's scary out of integrity. Like this is not in integrity with me and what I want to be doing in my business or my prices or the way I like to work with people. And so it's recognizing that difference of, okay, this is out of integrity and it's scary and it doesn't feel good. And then there's scary, exciting, holy shit, can this possibly be true? This seems too good to be true, but I'm going to do it anyway. And wow, it turned out to be better than I ever thought.
Yeah. And I feel like you always learn anyways, no matter the outcome. I've had, opportunities, or maybe like it didn't go as well, but I did learn something. And so I feel like I'm just adding on to, my little suitcase on my journey of, just being a creative. And I learned something, whether the outcome was good or bad. And then I know for the next time, maybe I can do things a little bit differently. So yeah.
Yeah, it's such a, I like to think of it as a layering process. It's like, earlier this year, we're still in 2021 as we're recording this, but I know people are going to be listening to this in 2022. So early in 2021, my husband and I went on a vacation to South Dakota, of all places. We're like, okay, we know Mount Rushmore is there, but what on earth else is there to see? And we ended up finding this, it was, what did they call it? It was like the Mammoth Tar Pits or something like that, where over the thousands of years, tons and tons and tons of animals would fall into these tar pits. And then, of course, they were discovered and excavated. And you look at these layers of the earth and you can literally see history unfolding.
Wow, that's amazing.
And I feel like that's kind of what being a freelancer and a self-employed entrepreneur is too. When you first start, you are at that bottom. You are at year zero.
Yes.
And over the years, you build these layers and you learn, okay, I don't want to do that kind of work, or I know to beware of these kinds of clients, or here's a red flag that I picked up on, or on the positive side, okay, now I know this project actually takes this amount of time. I need to charge way more for that. Or there's so much value in what I offer, the results I got for my clients. I need to charge more for that. And we just build up these layers over time that become these sources of information that let our businesses become stronger and stronger and stronger. And yet we also tend to beat ourselves up for having to go through building those layers when really like you're saying, I love that you said that every opportunity, even if it didn't work out the way you wanted it to, it's a learning experience and you're better for it.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah.
So you started your business 8 years ago. What have been some of the biggest lessons that you've learned, either as a designer or a freelancer, over that time? Because that's a significant amount of time to be running your own business.
Yeah, I would say something that I've learned, to not be scared of reaching out to people. I think I've heard that before, but being able to actually doing it, I'm just like, wait, it's true, it works. Even if sometimes you send maybe like 20 emails, nobody gets back, nobody gets back to you, but then you send maybe that, it's like you try again, and then that one person gets back to you, and the person's giving you a chance, and it's working, and it's just amazing, and maybe it's surprising, and that works for me so many times. It's actually unreal. But my first internship out of college was with this amazing art director and designer. She had her own studio, and at that point, she was actually working alone. And I just reached out to her and I was like, "Hey, I am looking for an internship. Do you have like, are you looking for interns?" And she had never had interns before, so I was like a first ever intern. And that summer, that's when she actually got her, like, she opened up physically her studio, and I was the first intern ever because I just emailed her. So just like so many things happened to me like that. So to not be as scared, I think, to reach out to people, no matter like if you don't get, responses to your emails or like all of that, but just, try and try and try again until you get that one email back. And then I would say again, don't be scared of just going for it. I've had just opportunities again where I felt like, wait, maybe I'm not very qualified for this. Maybe it's for somebody who has like, I don't know, 15 years of experience, or just like way more experience than me. And maybe I'm just like, I just finished college. I'm not, you know, all these excuses, but I've learned to just like maybe fake it until we make it, I think also works, honestly. And so, yeah, just go for it. Email those people. If you see that job and you don't feel very qualified for it, just apply. You never know. Again, I've done that also many times, and it worked. And so, yeah, don't be scared. Just go for it.
I love that you're saying this, because I think this is one of the, especially with the freelancers that I work with one-on-one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This is one of the biggest fears that I hear come from them, which is, I don't want to annoy people. I don't want to bother people. I don't want to be obnoxious, or I don't want to pester them. I don't want to get on their nerves. I don't want to, anger them by reaching out. And yet what you're describing, and I love that you said that you reached out and it was the first internship that she had ever offered.
Yeah.
You literally created that opportunity for yourself, because that opportunity would not have been there had you not sent that message.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you how many times I've done the same thing within our marketing agency, where there's a company that I want to work with, and I could just sit there and assume, oh, they have great blog content on their website. They must have a good writer, or they're such a big company. They probably aren't going to hire an independent contractor who wants to stay freelance. They'll probably only hire someone who wants to be a W-2 employee. I could make those assumptions, but really what I'm doing is making excuses for myself to not pull the trigger and actually reach out. When I do reach out, there have been companies that have, traditional employment job listings on LinkedIn and things like that. And I reach out to them and say, hey, have you ever thought about working with a freelancer, an independent contractor? And you have to create those opportunities for yourself, because oftentimes these companies are looking for a solution.
Yep.
And you're providing it.
Yep. That's true.
So it's almost like, how dare you like not make your services available to people?
Right.
I mean, you're doing the world a disservice by withholding the solution that you have to offer.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. That's true.
So when it comes to actually working with your clients, what has that evolution been like for you over the years?
In what ways?
So I love that your journey really started with learning the skills of design. And that's usually how it starts for us. For me, I always had a natural talent as a writer. I honed those talents in college, even though I was getting degrees in psychology, completely unrelated, just similar to you. And it took me a long time to really work out the kinks of running a business. So you learn the skills of design. How did you learn how to work with your clients and run the actual business of being a freelancer?
Yeah, I think honestly, I feel like I'm still learning, and it's still a learning process. And I think in a way, I think I like that too, that I'm not, satisfied or maybe too comfortable yet. Still learning. And obviously I remember like when I started, you make so many wrong choices, or you're not sending the right documents, or all those little things when you start a business. But as you go on and on, you have just have more confidence. You feel I'm just more comfortable. You're learning more as well. And so I feel like just step by step, small steps, The mistakes that maybe I made 2 months ago are not the ones I'm going to make in 5 months, And so I feel like it's a learning process. I'm still learning. Yeah.
You mentioned confidence, and I think that's such an important piece here because I imagine that people who are listening to this or potentially watching this on YouTube are looking at you and going, well, she's just naturally confident. I can just tell she's naturally confident. But what would you say to someone who isn't naturally confident and they're actually walking around with a lot of self-doubt?
I would say, again, I think the practice of just doing it and seeing the results helps a lot. You just have to do one thing for today, and that's enough for today. You don't have to be like, okay, I have, tomorrow I need to be charging like 10K, to reach out to all these 10K clients. Like, no, you start small, like, slowly and slowly. And you just also have to remember that everybody always, like, we all deal with, like, self-confidence. It happens anybody. And so I would say just like small steps, and then just keep practicing, and don't put the bar too high as well. I think that's something that we tend to do. We look at all these amazing, for example, designers are up there, and we think, oh, I can do this, or maybe I can, get to the level in one night. Like, no, you have to do it's a journey, it's a process. And so I think small steps are just very important to gain confidence. Yeah.
Were there goals that you set for yourself when you just started out that you now look back on and go, wow, that was so long ago. I achieved that goal, and so many since?
I think, yeah, definitely. I think, like I said, even just like reaching out to people that I want to work with, or, when I started, I had to start with, gaining experience first. Yeah. And so I was working with, small studios and small agencies. And I feel like just those small goals, like, okay, there's this amazing agency in town that I love. I would love to maybe gain experience by working with them, and, just send out one email. And when I look back, sometimes I'm just like, oh my gosh, I was there at that age working with them. That's amazing. And it's just crazy, like the old me would not have, believed that it was going to be possible, but it happened. And so, yeah, it's crazy to look back, on your journey. And yeah, it's crazy.
And your priorities shift a lot too. You mentioned experience, which I think is a really important thing for us to talk about, especially in those early days of freelancing. And for some people, it becomes the early years where really the most important thing to you is getting experience. Now, we don't want to confuse that with exposure, because nowadays, honestly, exposure isn't really that valuable. There's so many writers, so many designers, so many contractors out there that companies can work with. Exposure, it's a drop in the ocean.
Yeah.
So I always recommend that freelancers steer clear of those clients who say, oh, you should do this for this lowered rate, or you should do this for free because you'll get exposure. That's really not the valuable piece. But what is valuable in the early days is experience. So for you, when is it okay for a freelancer to do a job for the experience? Like, what are the criteria, or what were the criteria for you when you were going through that stage?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I went through that process. Actually, my first internship, I was working 40 hours the entire summer. I think I did 4 months instead of just 3 months, and it wasn't a paid internship. But for me, yes, because it was this amazing designer that I really loved. I loved her style. I loved everything that she was producing, and it was basically my dream job. And for me, it was like, I think my love for design, my love for what I get to do, like I was going to get to do with her, was just so much more. And for me, the money wasn't really important at that time. And I just wanted to gain experience. I wanted to learn alongside of her, just to see how she's running her business and how, um, yeah, just learn as much as possible. And yeah, for me, I think the experience at that time was way more valuable than anything else. And I learned so much. And actually, that made me realize what I love and also what I don't love. And so right now, I'm more of a brand designer. That's my thing. I love, branding and illustration because I did so much of that in that time, in that internship, for example, right after college. And so it was just kind of like a very decisive um, time for me, and so yeah.
So it sounds like when you're in that stage where you are still learning, you feel like you still have a lot to learn about the industry that you want to go into.
Yeah.
And you also said that there was an intrinsic reward. You said that you really loved her. It was your dream job and the money didn't matter to you.
Yeah.
And so those are the situations when it's okay, because I am always harping on, you have to make sure that you're getting paid a decent amount, and that energetic exchange is there, but there are times in our careers, especially in those early years, where the experience is more valuable than that paycheck. But when did you know, or when did you notice that shifted for you? If you look back, when in your 8 years now of being a freelance designer, did you go from, okay, I'm good on the experience side of things. Now what I need is money. I need to create my own salary, essentially.
Yeah. I think it's just when I was able to just get that big girl's job, I think I would say big girl's job. I not realized, okay, if they hired me, that means they hired me as a freelancer. That means I have something. It was this really big real estate company here, and made me realize I do have now the experience. Obviously, I'm still learning, but if they hire me, that means that they saw something in me. And I think it was when I was in the interview session with the people there that I realized I'm like, now I can actually argue with about salary. I can argue about the benefits and all of that things, all those things. Yeah, because I'm just realizing this amazing real estate company is hiring me as a freelancer, and I just I just got out of college, and yeah, it was a big realization for me for sure. Yeah.
And I think it's great that you point that out, because I think the confidence from other people saying, I see what you can do. I want you to do it for me. That sometimes comes before we have the confidence in ourselves. And that's normal.
And it helps.
Yeah.
And sometimes it helps so much. Yeah.
Exactly. And so one of the things, especially, I have a few one-on-one clients that I work with who really struggle with that self-confidence piece. And so what I have them do is go through and make a list, literally make a list of every compliment that a client has given them in the last month, in the last year, in the last 5 years. And they do it. And they're like, how can you possibly be making me do all of this work? And I'm like, oh, there's a lot. That's my point.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I love that.
And sometimes we have to remind ourselves of all the good things that everyone else has to say about our work. And we have to let that inner voice of self-doubt and self-sabotage just shut the fuck up, basically.
It's so funny that you mentioned that, because I really do that. Actually, just remind myself of what people have told me so that I can move forward. Because sometimes, you just, doubting or maybe questioning yourself, questioning your journey, questioning, your decisions. And sometimes it's good to have that just reminder of just everything that people have said to you before. And so it's so helpful sometimes.
Yeah. So where are you headed now? What does the future look for you and your company?
Well, I would love to, right now, actually, I'm kind of 1 foot in freelance and still, if I can say, just a normal job, regular job. But for me, the dream would be to completely be full-time freelancer. And I'm excited for that. I would love to just, all the freedom that comes with of the, I know we sometimes also think too much about the freedom, and I know there's also a lot that goes into, completely being full-time freelancer. I know it's a lot, but I'm just excited, to be, fully on that journey. And just learn and just meet people, connect with other designers, and have, more relationship with clients. That would be the dream. Yeah.
So, on that perfect note, where can people check you out if they're interested in seeing your work or potentially working with you or collaborating with you?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at Esther, Esther, Baseme, Baseme. And then you can also find me on my website at estherbasemate.com.
Perfect. And we will put those links in the show notes. Thank you so much
Great.
for being here with me today, Esther. This has been an amazing conversation that I know is going to open up a lot of people's eyes to some of those hard truths that we all go through in the early stages of freelancing. But just knowing that you're not the only one who went through that,
Yes.
that can be all it takes to give you that extra oomph to get through it.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I'm so excited to, for everybody else to be able to listen. And yeah, thank you so much for your time and for having me.
Awesome. Thank you. Hey, it's Ray again. Thanks for listening. If you liked this episode, please subscribe and rate us on your favorite podcasting platform. We're on iTunes, Stitcher, Podcast Addict, YouTube, and more. And want to be a guest on the show or know someone who has an amazing story of entrepreneurship? Apply on our website at www.chironconsulting.us/podcast.